assessment as a whole, so I'm going to skip over really quickly what I do have. But I did want to kind of introduce the idea of valid, reliable, fair assessment. This is a term that comes from a Stanford paper back in 2013 that kind of came on the tail when the standard core things, curriculum that K through 12 got stuck with, that I think we're just kind of getting stuck with too. So what they decided, and I liked it, was this criteria for a good assessment. And keep in mind something that Keith said as far as assessments aren't just those finals. I used to think that was the only one that I was really talking about when I looked at my classes. But what you're doing throughout your course is your predictive, formative, and summation. Predictive is that pre and post test that a lot of divisions have with some courses. The formative is what most of us are using throughout the entire semester. And then, of course, the summation is the final. The final is not the only assessment, and it shouldn't be. So what we're looking at is throughout the semester. And what Stanford points out here is that assessments should examine higher order thinking skills. That's the one I really want you to key in on. Because a lot of times we have tests that may be true and false, multiple choice, and I used to think those were the better tests because they were objective. They're also easier, and so I hated math instructors for a very long time. However, with this, we're looking at assessments that are looking at synthesis, research, analysis, all of those kind of things that true, false, and multiple choice typically don't. And what a lot of scholars and studies are showing is that they are the least valid form of assessment, which really surprised me because I thought it was the opposite. But it leaves us with the question of how do you assess with a valid assessment some of those higher order thoughts. So if you jump down, because I know I'm running out of time here, the last one, assessments must be valid, reliable, and fair, and accessible to all learners. And so we're looking at assessment for online instruction. And accessible is really what makes the difference between online and traditional classes, because we're using a different medium. And that means we have other issues such as security to take into account. But I think a fair assessment, a reliable assessment, really transcends the medium because you're not going to give an assessment unattended to students if it's a final or a post-test. You're going to be in there walking around making sure that it's secure testing. So we have to translate that into online somehow to make that valid and accessible too. Free from bias is kind of tricky. Have you ever found where you've been had some bias in one of your tests, and what does that look like? I know it's a problem. I'm biased. I don't know I'm biased, right?
All Caucasian names.
Say what?
All Caucasian names.
Okay, all Caucasian names. How does that create a bias?
I don't have all Caucasian students.
Okay. Why would that make any difference if I said, it's kind of like the gender question. Well, I say man, but you know I meant woman.
I don't.
Okay. Because our minds create images with words. And so when I say nurse, is it female or male in your head? Okay. Doctor? Yeah. It's changing a little bit, I think, but that's what happens. And so subconsciously we do translate, and that's where that bias comes from. So I can look at names, but I can also look at situations where I've created that may not go for everybody, okay? You may not have a student that has a family that comes from middle class with college degree and parents. And so that creates a whole different environment. So my test needs to reflect something that's more accessible for everybody. Okay, online assessments is specifically what we're looking at. And the first step is, of course, those course competencies that they've been making us do something with for 3,000 years here at Crowder. And we're just at that point where we have our student abilities, we have course competencies in almost all of our gen ed courses, and not, I think all of them. And those course competencies are those things that I'm supposed to be teaching. How many found that when you first had those course competencies stuck in your class that you weren't teaching exactly everything that was listed there? I'm the only one? Okay. I was teaching Macbeth. They said teach Hamlet. Okay, I didn't want to teach Hamlet. I'm sick of Hamlet. I had to teach Hamlet because that was on the course competency. It also said that I can't talk about primarily British authors because it was more general. So those course competencies really kind of focused what it was I was teaching, and I had to delete a lot of stuff. I would say close to 40% of what I was teaching in my 101 English course, I had to delete when we first started doing this, because I wasn't teaching primarily rhetorical modes, which is what they wanted me to teach. So those kind of questions need to be asked, and once I've answered them, are my exams aligned with my course competencies? And then I have to ask, how am I going to do that? How am I going to assess that? Best practice is to cover the entire semester in incremental units, not just the finals. So from day one, you're going to have not just a diagnostic, the pre-test, but you're going to have reading quizzes. I'm going to have my weekly discussion boards. Those are valid assessments, or can be. How many use rubrics in Blackboard? Okay, how many think that just sounds way too much work? Okay, how many don't know how to do it? All right, all of those questions, they're easy to make. Even the Blackboard at first glance makes it look complex. It's a matter of add a row, add a row, add a row, okay? Add 3 columns. Good, poor, you suck. You know, whatever you want to title it, right? Needs work. Promising, but yet. Okay, so then you check it. And you can offer feedback and comments in there too, but particularly with discussions, weekly discussions, those are time consuming, not just to do, but then to grade. In the old days, I had one window open here for all of the postings, another one for the grade book because they weren't integrated, and another one for a Word document so I could catch word count. You know, it was just a nightmare. And so it's still kind of tedious sometimes, but it goes much better now with rubrics. Go down to course tools in your Blackboard course, click on rubrics, and create a real simple one. You can't break anything, just play with it. And see if you can't create one and you attach it to your grade book and your discussion board, okay? Real quickly, this is week 2 of one of my training courses. And if you take a look up here, grade discussion forum. If I go here, it opens up this, and I want to grade, let's see, Paul. And this is week 2 discussions, and I had 3 prompts in there, I think. So what I want to do is open up the discussion board rubric, and here I've created these descriptions. They don't have to, they can be 1 or 2 words. So discussion postings include thought-provoking input and feedback designed to enhance communication, but actually they should be shorter than this. And so I mark exemplary, quality of writing, because I really want them to capitalize stuff. Exemplary, you have periods, I'm good. Connection to professional practice. If I open up the feedback, it means that you've read the textbook and you're reflecting upon the textbook material, and you mention the author, and I write that in the syllabus so they know. And so I set up 5 here, and I click, and then I say save rubric, and here's the important part. Once I say save rubric, you're not done. You have to go back up and say submit. And then the student can see that, all right? And it takes seconds in order to read those again and then grade. So, and it's also more objective. Writing is a particularly bad area that students can say, oh, you're just grading to whatever you want to do, okay? And that may be true a lot of times. I prefer narrative, or I like first person, you know? But if your rubric shows that, no, this is what I'm looking at, it also creates a situation where students can come back and argue with you, which is good and bad, depending on how you're feeling that day, okay? But it does open up that conversation, because a lot of times I've been wrong. I was tired, okay? And I'm going, okay, apologies, I'll go back, you're right, it was there, okay? And that's a good learning, I think, for everybody.
Do you accept the rubric as the entire feedback, or do you expect the feedback box to be filled out as well?
I don't. There's no requirement for it, and there's no requirement to use rubrics either, but the feedback should be given. So it depends upon the instructor. I'm just saying I find this much easier, and I think it's a better teaching method. And I don't usually enter feedback in there, except for week 1 and week 2. Write more. If it's come up as key point, you know, not enough words. The first couple of weeks are critical in their regular classes because they just don't know what they're doing wrong. And so I'll write something then. And then usually by week 8, sometimes I drop using the rubric because they all know what I'm looking for. It just depends on, how it goes. But I definitely think they're helpful the first half of the semester because students don't know what you're looking for, particularly with discussion, Okay, multiple method assessments. Make sure you integrate the true and false again. Can't say that enough. But integrate those with short essay questions, written analysis, synthesis, research-based projects, all those kind of things. These are my competencies for World Masterpieces 120. And what I needed to look at was on bold. These are the things that I have my competencies. These are the things I need to assess over. So that was step 1. Distinguishing characteristics of literary genres. How do I assess for that? If you were teaching it, it says identify the characteristics of a short story. What might work? Quiz? Writing exam? What?
It's a discussion forum,
You can do this in a discussion forum.
Yeah.
The discussion forum is a valid form of assessment if you create it that way. Use rubrics and design your problem so it reflects what your competencies are sustained. That is an assessment, all right? But you have to show that this is what you're assessing, and that's where the rubric comes in. You can talk about how you're assessing this, but nobody's going to follow it. It's your area of expertise, nobody else's. If I'm going to talk about a literary epiphany, half of you are asleep already, and I'm going to be asleep at work. Characteristics of literary periods, point out specific illustrations. Quiz, crossword, what? I like crossword myself.
That is scenario snippets. And then, okay, tell me what period this is based on, illustrating.
Okay. Higher level thought, 2, 3, or 4? I didn't talk about this. Sorry, it's the third one.
Definitely.
Okay, take a look at this dial thing. This is from a guy named Webb, 2 T's. I thought it meant Webb, but the other one, anyway. Different taxonomies. You've seen it with Bloom. This is Webb. I like this because it's simplistic. But if you take a look, it's just a bunch of verbs. But if you take a look at level 1, it's recall. Level 2, skill concept. Level 3 is something much better. And level 4 is extended thinking. So what the experts say is that 2/3 of your course content needs to hit levels 2, 3, and 4. 2/3 of your course content. That means your assessments needs to be able to assess that 2, 3, or 4. Which means that if you're using true and false and multiple choice, take a look at level 1. Identify, memorize, list, measure, match, recognize, recite, recall. Those are generally true, false, multiple choice. Again, most people agree that they're the least effective way of assessing, and it's always a surprise to me when I say it, because it just doesn't seem like it should be true. But it means least effective because it doesn't go into the higher level of thought, mostly. Now, there's always exceptions. You can take a look at one of those multiple choice questions. If it calls upon, you have to synthesize some information in order to get the right answer, then you're good, okay? But a lot of times that's not the case. And so take a look at your assessments throughout your semester. Are they hitting on some of these? For instance, level 4, the highest one. Design, connect, synthesis, apply concepts, critique, analyze. That's what we're going for, creating students that can think. That's what I get back from most employers that I talk to on the phone. They say they don't seem to be able to connect ideas. They know A and they know B, but they don't know how those two things go together at all. That's what we need to teach our students how to do, how to think. And that's very tough. But our assessments need to reflect that. So 2, 3, and 4, at least 2/3 of the courses assessments need to be designed that way. Question?
Well, you can kind of teach how to take a multiple choice test, and you can't teach how to take an analytical test, a discussion test. You can teach them eliminate 2 questions on a multiple choice, and then between the other two answers, or maybe two of the answers, and then between the other two answers,
Right.
pick the best choice. You can teach how to take that test, so that's fairly simple.
What do you mean you can teach how to take the test? I'm not following.
For a multiple choice test, you can teach, eliminate two of the wrong answers. Two
Oh,
answers that you know are wrong in that. So it is a simple test, but it's easy for the teacher to grade.
it is easy for the teacher to grade.
It's harder to grade a, analytical question,
It is harder to grade.
because sometimes they're just writing, it's not all black and white, it's gray,
Right.
so.
That's where the rubrics would come in handy, because it can simplify things. Easy doesn't mean good though.
No, right.
And I think that's the problem. We all know what our schedules look like. There's nobody in here that isn't struggling to try to fit in family time with grocery shopping, with grading papers. We all know that. And every year, they want us to do more, and they're going to give us less money. Okay, another subject. Okay, but anyway, our choices are limited here. We either become better teachers and we find the time to get the better assessment tools, which means a lot of work, or we go build houses, which is another thing I want to do. So, anyway. Okay, rubrics, multiple methods, all of those are important. Want to reiterate, lots of different types of assessments. The formative ones are discussions, use rubrics, shorter reading quizzes. They can be multiple choice, true and false. They're usually 5-10 points at least for me. What I'm testing over, assessing over, is have you read the stuff? So do you know the name, do you know the date, do you know the author, what's your favorite color? Okay, I don't ask them that, but it's not a big deal. So I don't worry about integrating essay questions with everything. Does it provide a valid assessment? For reading, yeah, did you read the stuff? I think it does. Most of them. Finals, pre and post test. How many did pre and post test online? Okay. Stop. Because the pre and post tests aren't secure. Any pre and post test you put out there, it's already leaked. It's not valid. There is no way to verify or guarantee the security of a pre and post test online. And if it's no longer valid, then it's kind of pointless. Unless it's just for diagnostic purposes in kind of a free fall kind of way. But as far as real data, it just doesn't really work. Having said that, all of those things that we tell ourselves about we can tighten up security in Blackboard or any online LMS, and we can make it as secure as we can in a traditional classroom, it's just BS. It's not true, we can't. We could make, it would be the one time that they filmed. That's just nonsense. So anyway, what we can do though is we can kind of make sure that the person that's enrolled in Blackboard or in the course in the beginning is maybe the same one that finishes that. Okay? Style of writing, that changes dramatically between individual students. We can also sequence our assessments so that depends upon prior knowledge in the course. So the stuff you teach in week 3, they need to know that in order to answer that short essay question in week 5. So Aunt Mabel, even if she's doing the work and not Johnny, at least Aunt Mabel's got to go through the entire course. Student ID, what we can use and what I've been using in my online courses is ProctorU. Have anybody heard that? Okay, it's two different ways of paying for it. One is student pay. It's $25 for 2 hours, which is the time I allow for my finals. So on my final, I have the students pay for that, and it has to be written into the course description. It has to go through the division chair. They have to modify the course fee. So in order to get this to happen with institutional pay, you only have to do it once for the course. But you have to go through that process, and it takes maybe a semester, sometimes 2, in order to get everything fixed there. Once that's fixed, though, the course description lets the student know that they need a web camera, that kind of thing, and that a course fee may apply. And that's what it is. They pay $25 in their tuition, and they don't have to pay in the course. That relieves them of a lot of responsibility. Everybody's been a college student. Remember what it was like financially at the end of the semester? Asking them to come up with $25 or a valid credit card, still good. I never had it. GSL's long gone, So that's always the tricky part. So that's why the institutional pay works better. ProctorU is a online service, and they have proctors that will use the student's webcam in order to monitor their test taking at their own laptop in their own home. It depends upon having the cheapest webcam possible. A $15 one from Walmart will do it. It doesn't have to be fancy. Most laptops come with it. They will need an empty room and no interruptions in order to take the test. ProctorU will have them rotate their laptop around so they can see everything that's on the test, that there's no notes, no books, or whatever you allow for the test. You can write in whether you want a bathroom break for it or not. I usually let them have one, just as I would a normal student in a traditional course. So those kind of things can happen. You have the exam as usual in your Blackboard course. You don't have to do anything fancy there. It's the same as always. You just have to add a password if you don't use one. And you give that password to ProctorU, and so when the student goes to ProctorU, logs in saying, I'm ready to take this test that the instructor has scheduled, they ask for their ID, they take a picture of it, that goes into the report that's attached to the exam. And that way we can have proctoring online without having to have the student report to grandma's church basement or something, which I'm never quite sure is a valid place anyway. I just think it's a huge headache to set up proctoring for all of your students in an online course, and there are a lot of different ways to do that. They can go to one of the Crowder sites, or they can go to a library. You can find somebody to proctor the test, but it's just a nightmare as far as organization. So that's why I just stick to ProctorU. I don't give them options. I just say you got to take it if you're going to take this course. It's not the best scenario, I guess, towards just the final. But if I make the final comprehensive, and I do it like I do in my traditional course, I make sure that the final does reflect what I taught, then I have a fairly good chance of having a pretty valid assessment. Curiously, my students have done better. I thought they would do worse because they didn't have access to books and stuff or their neighbor. But they've actually done better. And I think that's because from the very beginning they were more challenged. They knew they would have to learn stuff. That's my thought anyway. But it was a surprise. Okay, so ProctorU, SafeAssign. SafeAssign is built into Blackboard. This is not a proctoring thing. This can be used with any kind of assignment you create in Blackboard. Is everybody familiar with SafeAssign? Okay. How many, you don't know what this is? Okay. SafeAssign, let me start with Turnitin. Turnitin.com is something we pay for here at Crowder, and you can submit your student papers, and it will check them for plagiarism. It takes about a minute to come back, and it'll copy anything that's copied and pasted from any website, EBSCO articles, digital textbooks. It'll catch it, and it'll give you a report that you can then show the students saying this is why you got a 0. You have to go outside the Blackboard though, and you have to submit them yourself, or you have to have the students enroll themselves, which you can't do that.
It's really easy. I make all my
To have
students
students
do
do
it.
it?
Super easy. I get the first setting and password and make them do it.
For
I
Turnitin?
do too. For Turnitin.
Yeah, I use
Super easy.
every class.
I make them do it. I make them do it.
Okay, let them do it.
There's a handout floating around because I got
Yeah.
it from someone, and it's just visual. 1, 2, 3, and
Yeah. I make my students enroll themselves.
Turnitin is still better than SafeAssign. It has about 20,000 databases it will cover, and again, it's really quick. But SafeAssign has really beefed up their program, and it's within Blackboard. You don't have to go outside the site. Student doesn't have to do anything special. So what you do, if you take a look at that handout, this is the last portion of the thing, so you can be happy. Is when you create an assignment, you just go to any content area in Blackboard, and you create an assignment. Okay, now some of the options you get there, you can't immediately see them. You have to click on submission there. And it looks like this. Okay, this little link here, submission details, you can only see this part here because I clicked on that. If you don't click on it, you don't see any of it. So that may be why you missed it. I don't like this about Blackboard, but there it is. So, single attempt, you have options there. You can have a couple of attempts if you want. I use this for my English composition classes on a couple of attempts because I want them to submit the first rough draft. They can see the report. If I check that there, allow students to view SafeAssign. And then they can get back that report that says, look, this is copy and paste from this link, okay, this area, this book. and then they can fix that. Because a lot of students just don't understand that they're plagiarizing. They should, but they don't. So this helps you learn. Or I can do single attempt if it's a really short writing assignment, and they should know by that time at the end of the semester. And I tell my students in the syllabus, I have all your assignments run through Save Assign, so just be aware, checking for plagiarism. I think that helps just by itself, letting them know that, and I think they're more careful with the result. I don't have as much plagiarism as I used to, and I don't think I'm getting worse at catching it.
I just wanted to say too, you can also find out, like, if you have the same assignment and you have it check this, you can have, like, I've had students in the same class and they kind of collaborate together just on homework assignments, but it's exactly word for word, and just to let them know, like, I'm watching.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, just, I do pay attention. This, and not only that, but it's paying attention too. So
I think the thing that always irritated me the most about students that plagiarize was not so much that they plagiarized, but they thought I was stupid enough not to catch it.
Yeah.
You know, it was a personal affront. Anyway, this one, I don't have to roll any almonds and try to scare them so they can divulge in tears. Oh, I did it. Now I have the proof because I don't do it unless I've got the evidence. So Save Assign is another way you can do that. This is what it looks like. If you click on the link, it opens up and it shows you the word-for-word passage. This is in the Blackboard grade book, and the students can see it in their grades attached to it, and that's the beauty of it. It's much better than it used to be. It's about 75% is accurate. I think it's Turnitin, which is mostly good enough for me. My large research projects, I still use Turnitin, they 10-page paper kind of thing, but otherwise I use Save Assign for everything. It doesn't work with discussion work posts yet, unfortunately. But you can direct upload a copy and paste real quickly into Save Assign. You just click on the control panel, click on Save Assign, copy and paste, it takes about 30 seconds. It comes back and tells me. Still clunky, but I don't have to go outside of the site to do it. Okay. Questions? Okay, thanks.